Hi, friends, and welcome back. Today, I have a guest who is a wellness expert and owns a business that is really interesting, which is why I'm having her on the podcast today. A lot of people ask me, what does this have to do with overthinking? And I always say wellness and inspirational businesses and journeys of personal or professional nature all belong on the Overthinker's Guide to Joy. So I'm excited to introduce Jodi Scott, who is a wellness entrepreneur, CEO of SpryLife, and co founder of the plant based brand Green Goo. With a background in psychology and a passion for purposeful living, Jodi has spent her career bridging science, nature, and personal development to create meaningful impact. After selling her company and watching it drift from its mission, Jodi has made the bold decision to buy it back, and in doing so, had to completely rebuild not just the business, but herself. And that's one of the reasons she's here today. What followed was a deep journey of self leadership, mindset shifts, and learning how to navigate stress, uncertainty, and reinvention with clarity and intention. So, with that, I'd like to welcome Jodi Scott.
Hello, it is so nice to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it is a pleasure. And what an interesting story. So I almost don't know where to begin because you're the CEO of SpryLife, but your main business is Green Goo. Is that correct?
Correct. So SpryLife is the company and then Green Goo is our brand.
Love it. So tell me a little bit about you and how you got into holistic healthcare, if you will, but holistic products.
It has been a journey. So I actually got my master's in health psychology and specialized in psychoneuroimmunology and was going to med school. So I had a strong passion for just holistic mind body medicine.
Mm,
And my sister's a certified herbalist and midwife. And I found my entrepreneurial roots while I was in the process of starting my own private practice. And I opened up this little bed and breakfast and I started gardening and, really spending more time with plants and catering. And my sister approached me and said, I've got this idea. I've been working with plants in herb school and I think we have something special here in terms of making medicinal topical therapeutics. And my mom, we grew up in the military, and my mom is a self taught computer programmer, website developer. And the three of us just kind of huddled up and we said, well, let's look at this. And what was really interesting is I started looking at the first aid space specifically because at this time, this was about 10 plus years ago, natural was something that we talked about loosely, right, in the market. So it was like natural shampoos, natural lotions, organic food, but we weren't talking about natural first aid and we weren't
mm-hmm,
talking plant-based. That was not a term that was used like it is today.
mm-hmm.
And, I found it very interesting that the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they were told products like, Neosporin or hydrocortisone were the only products that could get the job done. So chemical laden products. And then the conventional consumer was like, I don't really care about the ingredients. I have a chronic skin condition and I'm not getting the results I need. I need better efficacy. And so we looked at each other and we said, can we make a higher performing plant based first aid product in this space and bring sustainability forward and bring some of these missions and visions that we've had in terms of time honored traditions that have been lost, along with clean ingredients and sustainability? So the first time I talked to a pharmacy buyer and said, I've got a plant based first aid, he just about fell out of his seat.
Sure, sure, because it's easier to sell hydrocortisone and Neosporin and Vaseline and all the things.
Yep.
Okay, so then but that you did obviously didn't discourage you, and by the way, let me just pause for a minute. I love that you're a mother, daughters, sisters company, so all female and all family. That's so amazing.
It is one of the greatest gifts of doing what we do. My sister lives one house down from me.
I
So
love that.
and she has 2 little ones, so I'll ride my bike down to her house and, grab some basil from her garden if mine's not looking too good, and, it's really sweet, and then my parents are about 30 minutes away, so very close, and at one point when we started this, we were all living under the same roof together. So my
Oh,
parents
wow.
had the guest bedroom. We built a little tiny house on the property for my sister. And, we were making this in a warehouse and brewing the herbs. So what's really interesting, and we've protected the integrity of these formulas as we've grown, which is we don't put pre-made extracts in these products. We actually bring the plants in and do exactly what we did from day one when we started, which is extract from the plants, yield the highest amount of the medicinal properties from these plants, and then put these custom oils into the product. So you can't get this blend of oils anywhere else on the market. And we've protected that to this day. So now our manufacturer does the same thing. So once upon a time ago, my daughter, who's now almost 14, but she would be in the warehouse with us as we're, you know, mixing and brewing our herbal blends and then pouring them
Mhm.
into the tins. And it wasn't uncommon for me to find my daughter making potions in her room as I'm cleaning her room. And I'm like, what is this? But she grew up watching us, formulate these products.
I love this. So what was the first thing you started making? What was you said first aid was your focus initially. Tell me what that was, your first remedy or
So, our first aid formula, interesting considering some of the current events that we were talking about earlier today. My sister, being a midwife, went to the Philippines after the tsunami had hit. And
Mm,
she went to help birth babies. And one of the observations she made was that she was going into these remote locations and, they were bringing these big duffel bags of first aid. And then when they got to these remote locations, they would find that, this woman had preeclampsia and she really just needed more protein, more food. And she thought, gosh, it'd be really great if we didn't have to bring so much stuff with us, along with, these chemical laden products and these beautiful gardens that had been untouched by Western medicine. And so she was sharing that story with me. And as we were formulating our first aid, we said, well, rather than just being a topical antiseptic, let's make this a portable first aid kit in one little tin.
mm,
Let's have simplicity in people's homes. Let's reduce the waste. And oftentimes you would find this in the first aid is you buy a first aid product, you use it
mhm,
for whatever that symptom is. If it's an acute symptom,
mhm,
it goes back into your first aid cabinet, it collects dust, and by the time you need it again, it's expired and boom, thrown into the landfill. So we thought,
mhm.
there's gotta be a way where, it's more resourceful on the day to day. So our first aid product is not only a topical antiseptic, but it is for cuts and scrapes, bug bites, bee stings, blisters, chafing. So it slows down the bleeding, speeds up the healing. It has some anti-inflammatory properties, so it takes some of the pain out and the itch and the sting. So you'll find if you have this with you, you're all of a sudden like, how did I live without this?
And it can it be applied to an open wound?
Absolutely, you can.
Wow.
So
Wow,
it's
that's an all-in-one product for sure. And what's the name of that particular product
it's
from
called
Green Goo?
Green Goo First Aid. We just call
Oh,
it what it
what it
is.
is.
We had all
Nice.
these different names when we first started, and we thought, well, it's already a learning curve for people to learn the plant properties and what they do. So you'll
Mhm,
find with Green Goo, our dry skin formula that's for eczema, we call it dry skin. Our repair formula that's anti-aging, it's repair. Our poison ivy formula is poison ivy.
it's really smart. Just call it what it is.
Yep, just call it what it is.
So good. Okay, so you expanded from that. You started this company 10 years ago with your mom in the guest room and your sister in a small guest house on the property. Now everybody's got their own homes. You're 10 years old. It started with the first aid remedy. And then how many different products do you carry now
Oh
or
my
offer now?
goodness. So we grew and, first it was in the first aid space. Then we started developing anti-aging health and beauty products, very
Mhm.
first aid focused.
Mhm.
And then from there, oral care and deodorant. And same thing, we often found, for example, with deodorant, people were more focused on, whether or not it performed where you didn't stink, your body
Mhm.
odor
Mhm.
and cleaner ingredients. And what we found really interesting, because we're always looking at like the transdermal absorption and how these plants work together, because oftentimes one plant like yarrow and then you combined it with, plantain together, they also have synergistic effects. And so
Mhm.
what we found with deodorant, which is very interesting, is that your armpit absorbs more than 70% of what you put in it. It's a great transportation vehicle.
How interesting.
And when you look at your armpit, it is a different kind of tissue. It's a different kind of skin. And so we thought, well, why don't we just not focus on just anti odor and ingredients? Let's provide more nutritive resources. So our
Mm,
deodorant has things like holy basil,
mhm.
vitamin C, ashwagandha,
Hmm.
functional mushrooms, and even echinacea. So you can have some immunity responses, some adaptogens. And so, really expanding into all of these different, and we even have a sexual wellness brand called Southern Butter, which is super fun. uh,
Wow.
yeah, really fun. And so, you know, formulating is really fun for us, but then also tackling a problem and adding more of sort of this mind body medicine from where we started and really grounding our formulas into offering other components. So you'll find, even with the sexual wellness brand, it's not just about the act of having sex, it is you know, what brings you into the bedroom and what gets you excited. Or sometimes you need to calm down, to enhance the mood. And so bringing in these essential oils that may be calming or exciting or an aphrodisiac component to it. So really looking at the body and the mind and how that relationship can marry with our products.
Oh, I love that. That is right up my alley on every level. I love the mind body connection. I always love, although I'm a big fan of Western medicine, I also, as you've heard from my other episodes, very much lean into holistic healthcare and always holistic first. Like I always say, try and cure what ails you by eating well, exercising, hydrating, getting plenty of rest. And then, of course, if you need Western medicine, it's there for you, which is a beautiful thing too. So I really love the
Great.
synergy of the two. But yes, when you can do it naturally and holistically and organically, always a good thing.
Well, and we always tell, our customers too, what's great is if you can solve the problem with these ingredients that are, less impactful in sort of a negative way on your body, it sets you
Mhm.
up for success when you need that Western medicine. I mean,
That's
a
right.
doctor will tell you, my best patient that I work on is one that shows up with everything else being healthy outside of what we need to address. And they're the
Exactly.
ones who are going to recover quicker, have better results. And so, yeah, it's just an opportunity to really marry those two again.
That's so good. Okay, so first aid, beauty and healthcare, sexual enhancement, if you will, whether that's moisturizer, essential oil, beautiful. Any other categories that you're also in?
And then the personal care, the deodorant and so forth. Now, I will say, fast forward today, we also now have women's health included, which means we have vitamin supplements for women at all stages of their sexual wellness
Mhm.
time. So,
Mm.
whether it is perimenopause, prenatal, or a multivitamin that's hormone balancing, and that brand is Ovamoon. But we didn't have that 10 years ago. That was something that we just recently incorporated into the company.
And does that require FDA approval?
It does not. So it
Oh,
does have
interesting.
a vitamin supplement label, and of
Mhm,
course, we have to follow the guidelines of that, and we can't make claims that haven't already been identified or proven through the FDA. So, for example, even on our Green Goo first aid products, my sister being the herbalist would say, "Hey, marshmallow root has more medicinal properties than what the FDA recognizes, but we can only put on the labels what the FDA has identified as the active
mhm,
ingredient and how they identify what
mhm,
it does."
mhm. I understand.
Yeah.
So, okay, so 10 years ago, you birthed this idea with your sister and your mom. I love it. You brought all these expertises into this cadre, if you will, your mother's computer programming skills, your background in science, your sister's background in herbalism, and you bring it together to create this company. How did you launch it? And I mean, grassroots companies are tricky. And this is also pre social media because there was no TikTok, Instagram, da 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 da, where you put up a product, you find an influencer, and then sometimes it goes viral. So, how did you build the company?
It was baby steps and lots of wonderful humans who guided us along the way. We were 98% retail, of course, because one, we didn't have the social media that we have today. But really more so because if you're a first aid product, then you went to your pharmacy, you went to the
Mhm.
grocery store if you had poison ivy and you needed to get it that same day. We didn't have the option of same day delivery. So it was knocking on doors, making phone calls. I'll never
Mhm.
forget, my first meeting with Walmart. I mean, and I was utterly terrified. At one point, I said, okay, to mom and my sister, I was like, okay, who's going to do the sales? Let's split this up. And my sister's like, I'm the herbalist. I don't do that. And my mom's like, I'm the graphic designer. I don't do that. I'm like, how did I draw the short straw, guys? Like, and so, I mean, I was a road warrior. I was gone 3 weeks out of every month for most
Whoa.
months. Yeah. And I
Whoa.
found creative ways to bring my daughter and my husband. There were many times that I was, in a meeting with a grocery store buyer and my daughter's with my husband in the children's museum. And then I would meet up with them afterwards so that, we could turn it into our family vacation just so I wasn't away from them for so long. But I was the road warrior for a long time before we could even afford to bring in a salesperson. And I'd say a solid 8 years before we even had a couple salespeople.
And when you're going to a retailer, manufacturing becomes a big thing because Walmart and Costco or whomever, they only buy in bulk. So,
Mhm.
how did you transition from being a small organization to being able to mass produce something and keep the authenticity of your formulas?
That was critical. So, we started hunting for manufacturers and, we got the door closed. Nope, nope, we don't do that. Why can't you do what Burt's Bees does and just mix it all in a pot and, call it a day? And we just said, well, this is why these products work. We have to protect the integrity of the product and the performance. And we were at a trade show and someone came up to us and said, I heard you said you have something for eczema. My son has eczema and I would love to try this product. So we gave him some samples and he called us a handful of days later and just said, I actually run a manufacturing facility. This product is the first product that has ever worked for my son that's over the
Mm.
counter. And we have to find a way to bring this product to market. Like, we want to manufacture your product. And we were like, great, because we need a manufacturer. And that's been our manufacturer to date. And all made here in the
For
US
all your formulas?
for most, like all the salves, anything that's infused. So, like 95% of all of our formulas. So it's been
What a
really special.
serendipitous moment.
Yes, it's been very special.
Wow. Okay, so then you had a professional manufacturer, and then that allowed you to go to big chain stores
And we had to
because you could.
custom build everything, custom build the tanks, the lines. I mean, it was a very different process, a dedicated team, a dedicated line to do this. And then yes, we started scaling from there. And
Wow.
every major retailer, from Walgreens to Rite Aid to Walmart, Whole Foods, across the board. So we were growing leaps and bounds and, really every year almost doubling from the year before. And all of us, we'd never built anything like this before. So you felt like if I were to capture or name that time in my life, it was
Mm,
very much just fight or flight. You were
mm,
just constantly putting out fires and tackling the next thing. And there are so many times you just lay your head on your pillow and you're exhausted, but your mind is still just racing.
mhm,
What else
mhm,
is there that I need to get done? What did I miss?
mm,
And, we laugh at this point, mom, sister, and I, friends would see us from, we'd go to an event or something and we would just be in a corner and we couldn't stop talking. And they're like, how do you do business with each other? And you're still so hungry to spend time with each other. And we're like,
mhm,
we're all in different departments,
mhm,
outside of like our all hands meeting, we're not seeing each other. So yeah,
mm.
we have lots to talk about and we just enjoy being with each other.
Oh, that is just the dream in every possible way, to work with people that you love and to love the people you work with, right? That's
Oh,
like
it's a
that
gift.
makes work not work. Now, how that's a very interesting segue for my audience, which is during the building of this business, albeit to serve others and heal others, either physically or emotionally or, from an autoimmune standpoint. How were you managing your own stress? And what were some of the tools that you and your sister and your mom were using in terms of stress management?
Yep. During that chapter, we did the best we could with the time we had. And I'd say it was pretty good. Knowing what I know now, I wish I had done more. But we were really good about exercise, eating healthy, it was kind of hilarious. We would do acupuncture every Monday. We had a
Mm,
local acupuncturist, and she would rotate us out. So, it'd be my sister, then it'd be my brother-in-law, then it would be me, and then it'd be my husband. Of course, all of us are working together. And she would just get little different sound bites of, what is going on over at Green Goo. I mean, she should write a book based on, our journey. But things like that, getting a massage once a month and just really making sure that we were resting, getting our exercise, and eating well. I would say we were good about that piece. What I wish we had done more was more from a mindset standpoint. Now I understand the value of getting present and investing more in that time, but you really felt like it was not even just a luxury. Like I could go in and do a 20-minute acupuncture because when I came out, I just, I felt physically amazing. So I was like, okay, I can keep pushing. But what I didn't recognize is I needed to fill that other part of my emotional intelligence, we'll call it, to
mm,
really get balanced and get present. And you're just never living in the present when you're in that fight or flight state. And I don't think it's not the advice I would give an entrepreneur or another human, really. It's not a luxury to get present. It's necessary.
mhm,
And getting present will not only serve you physically, emotionally, and spiritually, you will
mhm,
perform better, like
mhm,
times 10.
mhm,
Even though it seems strange to slow down for 2 minutes. I mean, literally
mhm.
just 2 minutes can make all the difference. And
Well,
so,
I think for a lot of people coming to this podcast, many of them who have listened to it will know what you mean. But if for first time listeners, the concept of being present when you have been living in an adrenaline fueled state, either because of your personal life, professional life, or both. And most of my clients are in that, highly charged, high adrenaline, cortisol producing state when they come
mhm.
to work with me. What would be some of those tips and tricks besides a monthly massage appointment or a weekly acupuncture appointment, which are both beautiful luxuries and highly recommended if you can afford the time and the money? But what are some of the tricks you now know or now have to help you get present so that you don't run off the cortisol high?
Oh, yeah. Well, and to give some context too. So, we sold the company. And the idea was not to stop being a part of the company. The idea is that we were going to expand globally and grow exponentially. And something in me said, I have spent the last 10 plus years in fight or flight mode. I need to better understand what it means to not live like that. And I want my next chapter to be different. Not knowing that by me starting this journey was going to be the thing that served me most. So, a handful of weeks after we sold the company, and I had started working with a coach that really focused on, sort of positive intelligence as a model. So, that was my first kind of exposure to it. The company that we sold to, one of their founders was raided by the feds. And all of a sudden, this company crashed and crashed fast. So all of a sudden, everything's fight or flight. And, they lost funding, they lost their license, and there was no way for me to get the company back. And so now I'm unemployed. I lost the company that we spent, the last 10 years building. All of our personal resources, were put into this company, and I have massive adrenal fatigue, like,
Mhm,
in the worst way, and you just hit rock bottom, like, you can't even get up for the you're just like, "What is my purpose? How do
mhm,
I move
mhm,
forward?"
mhm,
And thankfully, having starting to work with this coach, he taught me some real simple acts of, getting out of bed and watching the sunrise and putting my feet on the ground and really
mhm,
feeling my feet and
mhm,
really focus on that sunrise coming through. And, every 3 hours stopping and doing a breathing exercise for just 2 minutes, 2 minutes,
mhm,
or a
mhm,
tactile exercise or a visual one where you just focus on, I want you to look at that horizon and just look at that horizon. Don't think of anything else, but for, 30 seconds, look at the horizon. Now I want you to look at something else. And these are all things you can do for free. They don't cost you
Mhm.
any money, but they're these mental exercises that help get you present and then
Mhm.
obviously have a domino effect on your body in terms of, reducing that stress,
Mhm.
becoming really aware. I started cold plunging. I live in a town that has a very cold river that comes off the mountain. And so I didn't have to buy a cold plunge and started doing that. And again, really grounding myself, getting centered, doing the breathing exercises. And with that came more wisdom, which came more confidence, more motivation. And I was able to find a strategy to buy the company back. And
Mm.
it took us 18 months to do it. But by me getting present and really in my body and having good clarity and not being reactive or impulsive and running off of adrenaline, and it's hard to believe this, but it was one of the most quote unquote difficult times of my life, but it wasn't the most stressful.
Mhm.
And 18 months later, we were successful in getting our company back, and, we've only had it now for 7 months, 8 months.
Mm.
It hasn't been long, but
And are you still with the same retailers, or are you starting over in terms of
we are starting over. So we
you
were
are?
not production stopped because we couldn't,
Okay.
produce product.
Oh, that's
And
terrible.
and so we had to, let those retailers know and go. I mean, the good thing is I was the one who was a part of those relationships. So,
Mhm.
when that time comes, we'll be able to go back and do that. But it's a walk before we run. It is a different season. I had to recalibrate what is success and what is alignment and how to do this a little bit differently. And
Mhm.
and I think part of this too is it's not just about bringing these amazing products to people's homes, but I think it's really important to share the wisdoms that we cultivated through this journey to
Mhm.
bring in extra that, again, that full circle of that mind body medicine that we
Mhm.
can impart as a result of this journey.
So what is your distribution system now? Are you farmers markets? Are you at that level? Are you online retail? How do people buy your products or find out about your products now?
So mostly online. So we
Okay.
are, Amazon and our website.
Okay.
We do have mom and pops. We are still working with Walmart. So we do have, Duluth Trading and some, retailers that people would be familiar with. But I think this chapter, we are going to be really focused on supporting the independent mom and pops. And then, obviously today you can have same day delivery. If you have poison ivy,
Yeah.
you can get it the same day and being able to preserve margin because, what's happened is prices have gone up in
Oh, yes.
everything.
I know.
And we want to make sure that we can still give our customers the same quality products without having to get to a place where it's just extraordinarily expensive.
Right.
And so by doing, by being online and being direct, we're able to preserve that for our customers.
That's so beautiful. All right, so let's talk about how people who are listening to this thinking, "Oh, but I have eczema. Oh no, I want, beauty care and I want natural deodorant and I want sexual enhancement cream and all of the things." Where can they find you? Tell them your website and your social media and all the things.
So our website is greengoo.com and our social handles are Green Goo Helps, like we're helping you. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also find me on LinkedIn at Jodi Scott. And I can also point you in a direction there as well. And we do have a welcome 10 discount. So if it's the first time you're coming to the website, use welcome 10 and get your 10% off.
I'm ordering my stuff today. I'm so excited. This is such a pleasure to meet you and hear about your journey and to share it because again, so much of my audience is everything from people who are very interested in Eastern medicine or natural medicine who want to feel better and less anxious, which is the whole point of, less overthinking, who would like to find ways to rebuild their immune system, to slow down, to feel better, to look better. And it just feels very much in alignment with my audience to have you on today and to be able to talk about your journey personally and then also the products that you carry that can help others.
Thank you. It was a real treat to be with you.
All right. So go to greengoo.com and check it out. I'm going to do that right now with my welcome 10 discount. And Jody, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. Back at you.